And we will begin with Mr. Ellison Bennett, who has 3 minutes. And the second speaker will be Vicki Baggett, who will have 6 minutes.
Thank you. I stand before you as a board member for the National Movement for Civil and Human Rights. I was born in Warrenton. I served as a mentor at Warrenton Middle School under Mrs. Rush, and I took it personal when the Commissioner of Education said things against the hard-working teachers, past and present, of Warrenton Middle School. And I want to say thank you to those teachers and administrators that have worked very hard to save that school. You know, I as a former elected official, I served on the city council in Polk County. It comes a time when you have to stand for what is right, stand on principle. To give this district an ultimatum really makes me angry. But you know, I pray every day for the children. So I want to say to the Commissioner of Education, trouble don't last always.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Baggett, and she has minutes donated from Gary Baggett. Would he please raise his hand so I know that he's okay in the audience? Thank you, sir. And then it would be Brittany Lovelady.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Baggett, a 32-year veteran English teacher from right here in this county. Thank you to Kevin Adams and Paul Fetzko for trying to come up with a definitive and simple plan of action in last week's workshop concerning compliance with inappropriate books all throughout our school district. I have been emailing all of you for over a year now, and the only books that have been removed from the libraries completely are those I have had to appeal, with the exception of some Sarah J. Maas books that I submitted, all thanks to a parent who stood her ground on these books with the review committee. Incidentally, 2 other Sarah J. Maas books have been submitted. We can all agree that come July the 1st, we should see a definite change in what is available in our school libraries. I have been begging you simply to follow the law and remove books that are obviously inappropriate. Dr. Smith had assured me at our impromptu meeting back in March that that was going to happen right away, but it didn't. Instead, many of us easily keep finding inappropriate books. Sadly, we have those in positions of authority who simply do nothing. For instance, one of my colleagues sent in a book to be reviewed called Be Prepared. This book is currently found in multiple elementary and middle schools in our school district. This means children as young as 5 can check out this graphic novel. Again, is this age or content appropriate? But guess what? This particular book was not considered inappropriate enough to restrict from our younger children. Our Director of Media Services has stated in an email to me concerning books that end up in the restricted section that this is based on multiple reviews and the information given in the challenge. In other words, those who are making these decisions are not reading the books. I have asked Dr. Smith what will happen when there is failure to comply come July the 1st. His email response to me was that the accountability falls to each school location and that discipline would come after allegations and investigations. So does that mean he is expecting each school to take ownership of their books? Can he assume that the leadership in each school will comply with the law? As recently as 2 weeks ago, I had to send emails to each of you with copies to Tallahassee that many of the books that were voted to be removed or restricted were still available in our libraries. By the end of that day, with my name being the topic of many conversations, so I heard, many of our libraries had been cleaned up. Thank you for that. But why had this not already been done? We need people who will do their jobs. Instead, according to many parents, some of our administrators and librarians are even showcasing specific restricted books by placing them in glass cases near the library checkout spots, deliberately enticing students, and it is my understanding that one of our board members has even seen this himself. In addition to the book situation, we now have added West Florida's public library link and their online e-books, which contain many of the books that you have ordered removed from our district. Are we going to use school-supplied Chromebooks to download the free app called Libby that would give our students unlimited e-book access to various types of books? If so, won't we be held accountable in offering potential inappropriate material to minors? I asked this question 2 weeks ago to no avail. With the new library media access policy where parents can choose specific access, the assumption is that those in trusted positions have already vetted the books in questions and have left their personal opinions out of the decision making and followed the law regardless. Everybody in this room knows that that is not the case. My colleagues and I will continue to add to our ever-growing list of age and content inappropriate books throughout the district. We're going to keep making surprise visits to libraries. However, we are going to stand by now and watch to see what happens come July the 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baggett. Brittany Lovelady will have 3 minutes, and then Joshua Luther after her. Oh, the one that came in later? Okay, you'll have 6 minutes.
Hi, my name is Brittany Lovelady. I am the mother of 2 twin daughters at Bailey Middle School. I'm here to talk about disciplinary issues within the schools and, quite frankly, just unruly students causing disruptions in the class, causing problems for my daughter's education. And it's not just my daughters. I don't stand alone in this. I have talked to numerous parents, not just within the Bailey School District, but all over. We need to make a change. Us as parents have rights, according to the Florida state statutes, for school safety. Our children need to feel safe in these schools. I am tired of hearing of students being afraid to go to the restrooms because they're being videoed or pictured in these restrooms. And you know, that is child pornography. I have started advising parents press charges because I don't want to see pictures of my daughters naked going around the school. I don't want them receiving pictures of other kids naked going around the school. Also, students are being, quite frankly, unruly, and these teachers cannot get a handle on it because of this matrix that is put into place. It is extremely confusing. It ties the hands of these teachers, causing them to not be able to discipline these students, which just makes them give more disruptions. They get sent to ILR. They're there for, 40 days? And then they come right back, do the same thing again, get sent right back to ILR because they can't go anywhere. According to my research, what used to be Camelot, I think is now Achieve, is full. These students don't have anywhere else to go. They can't be expelled. So something needs to be done within our schools. Not just Bailey, not just middle schools, it's elementary, it's high school as well. To get these students a proper education without the disruptions of unruly students. And I understand, you know, there are the issues of all these disciplinary issues can start within the home. However, these students are within the school for 8 hours a day. They are at school for more waking hours with their teachers than they are at home. I am fed up with how everything is being handled. These students need more discipline in a rightful manner, and I'm not trying to say that they need corporal punishment, no, but whenever they go to detention, they're sitting there playing games or just sitting there doing nothing. Have them go clean the bathrooms that they so rightfully think they can just ride all over. Have them go clean up the trash that they want to just throw in the courtyards. Find something that is fitting to the punishment or to the crime of whatever they've done and stick to it. Don't just sit there and be like, oh, well, you've got detention. Just sit there. or, find something to do that. Another thing that I've looked into is engaging more with these students. The more that they're engaged, the less time that they have to cause more disruptions. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, ma'am. Joshua Luther will have 6 minutes. He has 3 donated from Charles Luther, and then it'll be Sierra Chapaffin.
It is interesting to note that in our invocations these days, we've stopped invoking. I think it's maybe because people think they've banished God from the realm of politics, but I'm not sure. I want to read in a couple of sections from the article, The Shameless versus the Unashamed, written by Douglas Wilson. No level playing field. The lie of secularism has lured many evangelical leaders into the false notion that the conflict between good and evil is like a football game with neutral refs. According to this naive view, the refs just call the penalties, applying them equitably to both sides, and somehow the refs are supposed to apply their calls honestly, but without being in submission to any particular sectarian standard or definition of honesty. For to be in submission to a transcendent standard of honesty and integrity would put them on the side of the good football team, and that would be cheating. And so they somehow adopt this unattributed standard of reffing a game that just floats above their heads somehow. They judge the game in accordance with the rule book from somewhere. It was probably somewhere important, and one thing that rule book of dubious origins disallowed, it was any form of cheating. But this is nonsense. Jesus can call his opponents whited sepulchres because they were whited sepulchres, and they do not get to call him a glutton and a drunkard because he wasn't one. There is no penalty here for generic name-calling. There is the truth, and there are lies. Now, we have all seen games where the hometown refs appeared to be participants in the game and were not playing the role of objective and honest refs. They appeared to be actively working for the hometown boys. But this issue of shamelessness I am speaking of goes well beyond the question of obvious bias. We live in a time when the refs come out onto the court wearing the jerseys of the hometown team. When our coach went over to them in order to inquire about it, he had a technical called on him, and when the assistant coach went over to inquire about that, he was ejected from the game. So what does the Bible say about these two categories, about the shameless and the unashamed? The shameless. The hypocrites acknowledge the standards of God but do not live according to them. They do not live according to them deliberately. Struggling sinners acknowledge the standards of God and attempt to live in accordance with them with varying degrees of success. But the shameless defy the standards of God. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. Proverbs 30:20. When the shamelessness is far gone, the most abominable things can be done, and the echo chamber of approval from others engaged in the same wickedness reinforces the evil. The residents of Sodom who gathered on Lot's front porch still had their standards, objecting as they did to Lot's implied rebuke of their behavior. They were gathered there to rape Lot's house guests, and they took offense at the fact that Lot had forgotten our Lord's admonition to judge not lest ye be judged. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. Genesis 19:9. The shameless are under the judgment of God. The day of visitation is coming for them, and when it arrives, they will be cast down, and cast down utterly. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore shall they fall among them that fall in the time of their visitation. They shall be cast down, saith the Lord. Jeremiah 8:12. Scripture says that homosexual acts are shameful, men with men committing what is shameful. So we find ourselves in the middle of Pride Month, and we have pride parades and pride floats and rainbow flags everywhere. This has to be considered as the height of shamelessness. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error which was due. Romans 1:21. At a school board meeting last week, the coordinator of media services asked, if we are saying that in K-5 we cannot have any books with two moms or two dads, What are we saying to those children with 2 moms and 2 dads? What we should be saying to them and to everyone else is that the God who made the heavens and the earth has given us the institution of marriage as a picture of his relationship with his people. And God has defined marriage as a lifelong covenant between one man and one woman, and any deviation is intolerable blasphemy and rebellion against the Lord of all creation. The Florida Constitution, which each one of you swore to uphold, recognizes God's ruling in this matter by saying, "Inasmuch as marriage is the legal union of only one man and one woman, as husband and wife, no other legal union that is treated as marriage or the substantial equivalent thereof shall be valid or recognized." The public education system, just like everything else, belongs to God, the Creator and King of all. You have the solemn duty, as his servants, to submit truly to his law in the exercise of the powers that you have been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luther. Kiara Chaplin.
It's Chiara, thank you.
Chiara.
Hi, my name is Chiara, and I'm speaking also about a meeting which happened last Thursday, in which board members insinuated that the so-called Stop Woke Act and the Don't Say Gay law should apply as equally to libraries as they do the classroom. First of all, we know that these laws are meritless and unconstitutional, so I don't see why we should do the work of the far right-wing legislature for them. If they want to pass a bill to do that, then go ahead and do it. But we should not take our own initiative to strip away the speech rights of students and teachers. We trust the principals in this room to administer and to provide appropriate materials, okay? The point of this, as the last speaker outlined very well, is that they want to invalidate and erase recognition of LGBTQ people. That's what this push is about. LGBTQ people are not indoctrination towards children just for being near them. I have nieces. Am I a threat to my nieces just for being transgender? I don't think so. Another bill that's being pushed forward right now is the state legislature wants to prevent teachers from being able to be transgender in their own occupation of teaching. Does the board support this? We should protect children, and the way we protect children is by enforcing the Civil Rights Act. It's by enforcing the 14th Amendment. It is not to allow a right-wing legislature to stomp over our civil society. We need to be providing protection on the basis of sex to our young children. But there are policies that have been put forward and implemented that discriminate against transgender students. That's discrimination on the basis of sex, which is unconstitutional, as we know, and violates the Civil Rights Act. There's a higher body than the state of Florida, folks, and it is our Constitution, and we cannot allow them to preempt each and every one of our rights. Another issue with banning books, as the counselor insinuated they'd like to do, what they want to do right now is apply the Stop Woke Act and Don't Say Gay to our libraries. We have seen book bans in this county. We're now seeing the book purge, okay? Stop the book purge. It's unacceptable for us to be speaking in this manner, and we say we're going to clean up our libraries of what? Of LGBTQ people existing? Of books on themes of race and gender? Are you kidding me? You're going to send marching orders to clean up our schools? How about we pass comprehensive protections for transgender students? That's what we need.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melanie Eubanks. You'll have 6 minutes. I have 3 donated from Neil McDonald. And next would be Linda Fussell.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Distinguished board members, I ask you, what justifiable reason are members in our community wanting to sexualize our children and take away their innocence? You're here to protect children and see that they receive a quality education without being exploited. We depend on you to clean up our classrooms and our schools. If it cannot be in the classroom, It should not be in our schools. It is time for you to take responsibility and include self-selected books. The self-selected books in all forms, links, and any other label that are put on them to avoid following the law and keeping them hidden in the schools. Are you aware that there's a link on some of the school websites to a library outside of Escambia County School? Who's going to be liable for that? There is another thing, is who approved this? There are repercussions and consequences of lifestyles these books promote, and they can be seen in the daily news. Here in Florida, a man was charged for sexually abusing minors. A teen mom throwing her baby in the dumpster. Women being groped in stores. Incest, drugs, hidden cameras in bathrooms. A man was charged for sexually assaulting a horse, and the list goes on. A change needs to happen because these items have been in our self-selected library books. In 1856, a teacher in England, Mr. Wiseman, gave a speech to his students. He cautioned his young friends as to the habits they contracted in early life. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. He developed over a time for them to watch their thoughts, and they became their words. And we all know that little saying, or at least most of us do. But I challenge you, what if you insert that word sow? Watch what you sow in your thoughts, because they do become your words. And what are books? Books are written words. This saying has stood over time because it holds truth. If we change watch to sow, as the professor did 150 years ago, it gives a new perspective. Sow your thoughts, they reap words. Your words reap actions. Your action reaps habits, and your habits reap character, and your character reaps your destiny. The future, the destiny of Escambia County Schools are in your decisions. We want to be able to trust you and those you hire. Some employees have showed themselves untrustworthy. And I'm not speaking against every media specialist. I'm speaking about the ones who will not comply with the law voluntarily. They go out of their way to keep these self-selected, sexually explicit, and age-inappropriate books available to minors. We need to do like Santa Rosa County and close the libraries up and clean them up. The buck stops with the school board. Why is character so important? We want people to have integrity. We want them to have accountability, respect. We want a foundation of truth and honesty. And when you have people who have selected books that don't meet the criteria for the state laws, then it's like, how can you trust them to purge them out of the system? They find ways to go around it and hide it. And, the quizzes. Last week I heard the coordinator of media say that Mayon and AR, they could be purged if you gave the word. All that could be out of there. I like the idea of an AR type system where kids can take a test and see what they're doing. It is instructional material. Why do we use the STAR system if it's not? And I think we need to do something. I think the process of being limited access and opt-in policy is faulty, and it's not necessary if we're compliant. You want to attract the teachers who will stay, and you want to keep parents and their kids in the school, then Escambia County has to get back to a good foundation of honesty. My neighbor has said Escambia County had their chance with my kids. They're gone. We want to build our schools on a foundation of truth and honesty, transparency, accountability, respect, and integrity. Teachers need to know they matter. Teachers are not mental health counselors, and neither are these books. Show me how you take care of your teachers, and I will tell you how you take care of your students. It's past time to begin to repair the crumbling foundation of character and building our schools. Then our schools have a better chance of being unified, stand on the truth, make our schools a better place for students to learn and teachers to teach. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Linda Fussell, and you have 3 minutes donated from Lindsay Durchie. And then would be Haley Freeman.
Thank you. Just so everybody knows, students have to have a public library card in order to access the West Florida Public Library here from your Chromebooks and or your computers. It's clear to me after Thursday's workshop that there is a lack of understanding of the service that school libraries provide beyond the classroom. Even the Supreme Court has noted the special characteristics of the school library, making it especially appropriate for the recognition of First Amendment rights of students, including the right to access information and ideas. School libraries are the hub of the school. Librarians are heavily involved in education, and changing technology means the library is actually more relevant than ever. School libraries help prepare students to live and learn in a world of information. The mission of school libraries is to ensure that students and staff are able to use ideas and information. While libraries support the efforts of teachers in the classroom for instruction, school libraries support students and families and are often the only access to literature of any kind that school families experience. School libraries used to be kept open during the summer here in Escambia County so that families could access books outside of the regular school year. School libraries provide a broad range of materials for all students. They give students a unique opportunity for self-directed inquiry and access to resources to spark creativity in all of our young people. House Bill 7 and 1557 are the current laws used in the book challenges to identify books that are supposedly against the law, as identified in the majority of complaints filed against school library books. Both laws deal with instruction in the classroom. Importantly, instruction is not defined for the purposes of this law. Neither is age appropriate. Both terms used extensively in the complaints. These challenges are aimed at silencing the stories of unrepresented and minority people and cultures. Suppressing these stories can be a form of discrimination. For example, banning books that feature LGBTQ+ characters can be a way of denying the existence and validity of these identities, which can be harmful to LGBTQ+ youth. Similarly, banning books that deal with topics like race, religion, or gender can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and prevent children from developing empathy and understanding for those who are different from them. Does HB 7 and HB 1557 apply to school library books? HB 7 censors protected speech in classrooms by banning teaching about systemic racism and gender and race discrimination. Again, the law prohibits instruction. This law seeks to erase America's complex and painful history of racism, oppression, and gender discrimination, which continues to impact our country and culture. So I ask the board to determine if HB 7 and HB 1557 apply to self-selected library books. By restricting access to diverse books, we limit the perspectives and voices that our students are exposed to and are now missing out on the opportunity to see themselves and the diversity of our community in their school books. This can lead to a lack of diversity in thought and a narrowing of our collective understanding of the world. This is a discriminative tactic that perpetuates harmful rhetoric to our children and puts our students at risk of missing out on important ideas and concepts that could have a significant impact on their development and education. These laws could make students, such as those with 2 moms or 2 dads, feel like they need to hide parts of themselves at school. Are they not allowed to talk about their home life? What are you trying to tell them by saying you can't talk about it? Creating policies that restrict freedoms for students to be themselves, biting with families that insist their heterosexual or cisgender children should feel comfortable in the school environment, essentially by never interacting with beliefs or people who are at odds with their own. We do not debate the existence of groups of people or their right to exist because they exist, whether we believe they do or not. We should not be prioritizing one student's comfort over another student's very existence. The stated reason for most book removals, especially those which concern sexual or social themes, is to protect children. At a time in which all sorts of material and imagery can be found on any number of electronic devices, that is unlikely. What they are likely to do, however, is to teach children undemocratic lessons, that if you do not like something or you just do not want to see or hear something, you can just block it, that you can keep others from exercising their freedoms and thinking for themselves. Trying to limit or remove these freedoms is not patriotic. It is censorship, and most parents in Florida do not approve of the banning of books. Participating in the marketplace of ideas, a democratic society requires thick skin. Removing books because you are afraid of what they say, or more likely, who might read them, and what they might learn or think, is anathema to liberty. And I just want to take a second to tell Mr. Marcanio, congratulations. Y'all may not know this. He's a big Bruce Springsteen fan. He and I share an affection for Bruce Springsteen. So rock on, Mr. Marcanio. Glory days. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Haley Freeman, followed by Heather Heathcox.
My name is Haley Freeman. I am a 7th grade student at Bailey Middle School. At Bailey, we have 3 counselors that serve over 1,300 students, and it is not enough. My peers need prompt help while dealing with different situations. I know not every situation is an emergency, so I would like to present the idea of a peer mentorship program. We can use Google Chats to reach out to a group of mentors. This would be an elective class for the mentors. Doing it this way would not cost extra money or need new computer material systems. Currently, we have to make an appointment to see a counselor. When my peers are not able to get prompt help, they become a distraction. My peers will curse at other students and teachers, stop participating, throw things, and cry. When I don't have access to talk to someone properly, it's hard for me to focus and participate. Please consider my idea to create a mentorship program to make my school the learning environment it once was. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Heather Heathcox has 3 minutes, followed by Paula Montgomery.
Hello. Recently, I spoke to some staff at multiple different schools. I have 3 kids, Haley being one of them. I have an array of elementary, middle, and high. We all know that vaping is an issue and it's not going to go away. I know that there have been previous educators to ask for vape detectors in the bathrooms. I know they're expensive. I ask that you allow the schools to do fundraising themselves for the vape detectors. If I could tell you the amount of times that my children, at both ages, my older ones, come home and talk to me about how the kids in gym are high, or about how they're seeing vape clouds in the bathroom. As a proactive parent, I did have that conversation with my kids prior to going to middle school, because let's be honest, we're not ignorant, we know it happens, right? Had I not done that, I fear that my kids would have experimented with their peers. Well, we can't stop the issue. We can't prevent them from coming into school because kids are clever. They like to hide things everywhere. We can be more proactive while it's happening. I ask again that you allow the schools to take on that responsibility themselves and see if they can get the funds together to make the areas, especially the bathrooms, a safer place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Paula Montgomery, followed by Marilyn McDonald.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for hearing us. I didn't go to school here. I went to public schools, but it was elsewhere. But I've had children and grandchildren who come through the Escambia County schools, and I have nothing but good things to say about that. I'm here today because there's something that nobody much has mentioned, and that's the effect of the lack of empathy on our society. If you think about the school shooters and the people, the mass murderers, and people find out what they were putting on their electronic stuff before this happened, and they say, oh, we should have known because they were putting all sorts of hateful things, either race or religion or for some reason. A great many of them, that's where they come from. They have not learned empathy. They haven't learned that we're all God's children, regardless of our sexual orientation or the color of our skin or the shape of our eyes or our religion or anything else. And that you should have respect and empathy for all people. I had one of my grandchildren tell me about an incident of bullying that she saw in the school, and she said, oh, nobody liked him anyway, as if that were okay to pick on somebody because nobody liked him. I mean, it broke my heart to think about that lack of empathy with others and the seriousness in our whole society that we experience when we just don't have it. That empathy can be learned by reading about people who are different from us and how they also have feelings and how they also work hard, and they are very much like us, even though they may look different and they may have different religion or different sexual orientation. But we are all God's children, and all of us deserve respect and empathy. Thank you.
Marilyn McDonald, 3 minutes, and then after, Karen Butler.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the school board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I want to start on a positive note concerning our superintendent by saying he appears to be a very kind man and certainly has done well in refraining himself from anger when being challenged and criticized, and I appreciate that very much. It's just that our views and opinions of what is best for our students is very different at this time. My husband and I attended our district town hall meeting, District 5 at Tate High School, with our superintendent and our school board member last week. During the meeting, it was emphasized strongly that safety was the #1 priority of the Escambia County School Board and administration. I so agree that having good security and protection for our students is of utmost importance, especially in this day in which we live. However, I am baffled that our superintendent and the majority of our school board members seem to only be concerned with one aspect of our children's safety. What about their mental and moral well-being? What about protecting them from gender confusion, pornography, and the strong woke agenda of the left that has been allowed to infiltrate our schools here in Escambia County? Is this aspect of their safety important to you as well? If our superintendent, along with this school board, genuinely care about our students the way you say you do, you would be concerned not only for the physical safety of our children, but also for their mental and moral well-being. By constantly promoting and exposing our children to materials on gender confusion, pornography, critical race theory, and more through their school Chromebooks, e-books, teachers' instructional libraries, and the school libraries, it would certainly appear that our children's safety is not very high on the list. When our District 5 school board member was asked at last week's town hall meeting if he was open to replacing our superintendent, he said he believed that he deserved more time to prove himself. For the record, our present school superintendent was actually sworn in September of 2020. That will be 3 years come this September. I believe he's been given ample time to prove himself. Many of us don't understand why he won't make firm decisions and take care of things quickly when it's in his power to do so. One of the topics that we've already mentioned that continues to come up is the unacceptable books and materials issue. This was brought to his attention with first with back in May of last year with well-documented evidence. We need a school superintendent who will move on with things and not keep passing the buck. The school book challenge was passed on to the school board to deal with, and now the responsibility has been given to the individual school principals and school media specialists. We need a strong, secure leader at the helm of Escambia County Schools that will bravely represent our conservative county. We are setting our children and families up for failure with the standards of morality that have been allowed to be put in place in our Escambia County public schools. Isn't it time to wake up and realize we've gone way too far down the wrong track? We need a new engine and a new track. Thank you very much.
The next speaker, Karen Butler, she has 6 minutes. Darylyn Butler, okay, thank you. And then will be Skip Butler after her.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. We've referred a lot to the new law, so let me read from the new law. It says, each district school board is responsible for the content of all instructional materials and any other materials used in a classroom, made available in a school or classroom library, or included on a reading list, whether adopted and purchased from the state adopted instructional materials list, adopted and purchased through a district instructional materials program under statute 1006.283, or otherwise purchased or made available. It also says this: any material used in a classroom, made available in a school or classroom library, or included on a reading list, notice the or, not and, contains content which, 1, is pornographic or prohibited under statute 847.012, 2, depicts or describes sexual conduct as defined in statute 847.001, unless it is a sex education class, which it talks about in detail. Number 3 is not suited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented, or is inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used. It is very specific. This law is very detailed. It does go into effect on July the 1st. Let me remind you again that it says the school board is responsible for everything. That includes not only instructional materials, but also the materials in the libraries. Now, in case you want to, because the point was made last week that shouldn't the materials in the library correspond with what is allowed to be taught in the classroom. So if you want to know what is allowed to be taught in the classroom, first of all, there is a definition in the law of sex, and it says this: sex means the classification of a person as either female or male based on the organization of the body of such person for a specific reproductive role as indicated by the person's sex chromosomes, naturally occurring sex hormones, and internal and external genitalia present at birth. If you want to know what instruction you may give a student concerning sexual education, it also addresses that, which is supposed to be 9th through 12th grade only. I can find it. Here we go. Says, A, classify males and females as provided in statute 1000.21, and teach that biological males impregnate biological females by fertilizing the female egg with male sperm, that the female then gestates the offspring, and that these reproductive roles are binary, stable, and unchangeable. B, teach abstinence from sexual activity outside of marriage as the expected standard for all school-age students, while teaching the benefits of a monogamous heterosexual marriage. C, emphasize that abstinence from sexual activity is a certain way to avoid out-of-wedlock pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, including AIDS, and other associated health problems. D, teach that each student has the power to control personal behavior and encourage students to base actions on reasoning, self-esteem, and respect for others. E, provide instruction and material that is appropriate for the grade and age of the student. So if you want the contents of the library for which you are responsible to match the curriculum, that is the statute. Now, 2 quick observations. One is, we have teachers and media specialists who have refused to do what you have already voted to do. What happens when it's the law and you're responsible? Number 2, I'd like to point out, they said that we can make it so that these online resources have guidelines where you can't pull up unwanted things. But let me remind you that the 3rd grader who went online on AR Books typed in, it was either family or siblings, I can't remember which, and the book that came up was transsexual. So what in the world, what kind of guidelines are you going to put in place so that they know, oh, if they put in family, we're not going to do transsexual? Let me just remind you again, July 1st, you are responsible.
Thank you, ma'am. Skip Butler, and then will be William Tinker.
Gentlemen, Madam Board Member, how long are we going to let this debacle, how long are we going to let this free fall continue? It's pretty evident that the majority of what's spoken from this podium is discarded. What you can't discard is what the DOE board says. After that total undressing this morning, that should be a wake-up call. Was and is horrendously embarrassing, but what's worse than that, we still got kids don't even know where they're going to school this year. And why is that? Because you keep kicking the can down the road, won't make a decision. I.e. last Friday's meeting, when the topic was library inventory and what reading materials available online, Mr. Adams emphatically stated his opinion that it needed to be addressed now, nipped in the bud, consistency. And even asked Madam Attorney on more than one occasion, can we poll the board to see if there's a consensus? Chairman spoke up, agreed, clearly stated his position. And then we got crickets. Crickets. That mode of operation is why we're in the situation with Warrington right now. That same mode, that's why. So, if we continue to enable the same leadership and support the same leadership, we're going to get the same thing. It's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. When we hear members of the State Board of Education tell our superintendent on more than one occasion that he is either disingenuous or incompetent, well, you pick which one, but either one's unacceptable. And it's time for a change. It's time for a change now, going forward. By the way, if Carl Madison was 1-7 3 years in a row, he wouldn't have got to stick around.
Thanks, sir. William Tinker. William's our last speaker in the public forum. We do have 3 other speakers who want to speak to agenda items, and we'll let them speak at that time.
First of all, I want to say thank you for your service. I appreciate that you're public servants and you want the best for the children. I do appreciate the lady who spoke just prior to the last man, and I think she laid it out pretty well. I want to encourage you as a school board, and I know this is your desire, to focus on the basic core elements of education. Math, science, literature, history, civics, music. You probably could throw in a few others there. And if we're focused on that, and we're not allowing this other issue, which is really happening across the country right now, you are keeping up with the news, there are school boards right now that are being addressed all over the country because there's been a push in our country for political and social reasons to change our culture. And if you keep up with the news, you understand that's what's happening. So I want to encourage you not to let yourself or the children of our school district to be pawns in that movement. We all want kids to be responsible, to learn and to do well and to be prepared for adulthood. I know that's all of our desire. But it's long been known that when you sexualize a child, it disrupts their academic learning. It really messes them up because they become focused on their hormones and not on learning. And this has been known for hundreds of years, if not thousands. So I want to encourage you, follow the law, and I would say go above the law and stick to a higher standard, because these are our children that we're talking about. This is our community. And when you have social disorder that is happening all across our country right now, we don't want to encourage that. There are, you may know this, you may not know this, there are many children who are reaching adulthood who have been encouraged in this transgenderism lie, and now they're regretting it. And they've had body parts removed, and they've been chemically castrated, and there are books and other things that kids get involved in seeing, both in the culture and possibly in school. I know there was a book recently that y'all dealt with that is encouraging something that really is, it's an innovation. It is a new thing. It is not something that has the test of time. We're destroying our culture, and it's starting, unfortunately, even in our schools. These issues need to be addressed by parents and not by well-meaning people in the schools.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the public forum.